Just when you think it's gonna get better, it doesn't. It's at that point where it's like it can't get any worse. Yeah, yeah,
What are you talking about, Willis?
exactly. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cantina Club's Outer Rim, where we're continuing to talk about season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. We're up to episode 4 now. Yes, exactly my sentiments. And we'll be right back to talk about that episode. You don't want to miss it. Trust me.
The
Yeah.
we have to have the talk.
Yeah.
You're singing young love, young love, at the Cantina Club.
Screw it. Young love.
Yep.
Everybody.
Yep. No.
Oh, check this out. I got my new
Oh, nice.
Ganglia watch. Samsung Ganglia watch 3000.
Is that ganglia or danglia?
It measures your fear and empathy simultaneously and gives you a readout daily of your daily fear and empathy is the Gangliatron 3000.
Tron. All right, so let's get back into it.
What's the
Okay.
summary? Hit me
What's
with
that?
the summary. Hit me with the summary before you lose me forever. There's only so much I can take. Hit me with
It's
the summary.
the summary that I'm going to do. I'm not even going to read one this week because it's all pretty simple and
I'm
straightforward.
with you.
It starts out as though it's going to be an episodic, which it is very episodic this week. They get pulled out of warp by some life form. We don't even ever get a name for it, really. It's just this giant blob thing in space that looks like it's they eventually find out it's in its death throes. Meanwhile, we've got
I
plot
know how
number.
it feels.
Yeah, kind of symbolic of the whole show, I think.
Right.
So then we've got the secondary storyline of Tilly and this weird blob matter that has now escaped from its stasis, and it
So
affects her.
It's the blob show this week.
Yeah, the blob.
There's a lot of blobs.
A lot of blobs. We'll get into some of the breakdown obviously later, but that storyline ultimately has Tilly being consumed yet again, not once but twice by this giant blob.
This is technically the third time.
When once isn't enough, to get the point. So they ultimately just figure out that this giant space orb, whatever it is, has been alive for 100,000 years. Why they come into that exact number, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but
because it's really big.
It has all of this knowledge. They assume anyway that it has all this knowledge, and that it's not just an inanimate object. It's holding them in place too. I didn't mention that. They can't get away from it.
It sucked them out of warp.
Yeah. So they ultimately decide that, okay, we're going to download all of this information, and they're finally realizing that that's what this thing wants, is to impart its knowledge before it dies. That's why it's holding them there. So they actually figure out a way to record the stuff before it ultimately blows up, and it actually saves their lives when it blows up by pushing them away from the explosion. Meanwhile, all this has gone on. Saru, because of the death throes of this strange creature we don't know anything about, it has triggered his his fight or flight mechanism that his people have on his planet.
Right.
And apparently we learned that once it starts, you can't stop it. So once he's called, quote unquote, called for the harvesting, as it were, I believe are the words he used, and he
He's
you
like a
either
human piece of corn.
you're, you're either killed by the things that are chasing you, or they're hunting you, or
Right.
die from the physiological problems that your
Yeah.
body goes through.
It's just a fantastic vacation spot planet. It's
Yeah,
just the
it
best.
really is.
Everyone likes it.
So
The
ultimately,
culling.
in the end, everything, they wrap it up and put a bow on most of it. I always call it the Enterprise. Discovery is saved. Everybody there is okay. They get all the knowledge. They're fine. Saru comes back from the brink of death, and the only thing we're not sure about yet, of course, is Tilly ends up yet again consumed by this blob because apparently it's not done with her yet. The end.
Nicely summarized. All
So,
right.
Thank you. If you cannot tell,
So well done.
by
You paid so
tone
much
of
more
voice I
attention than
just
I did.
if you can't tell by the tone of voice I just used, yeah, not my favorite episode.
Really? How could you
I
not
know.
adore
It's
this?
Shocking. It's shocking. I know.
The knowledge imparted to humanity. Doesn't that mean anything to you?
Apparently.
No, me neither.
I'm just cold-hearted.
I love how Captain Pike was listening to the knowledge, and he's like, it's like anything comes in, he's like, I'm turning this shit off, and let's talk about something else. It's like the knowledge was so boring that even he was like, what the?
God, yeah.
100,000 years full of just garbage. I think that thing probably sat on its ass for 999,000 years or whatever. 999 of
Yeah, I wasn't really
nothing
feeling
happened.
the automatic presumption of that it has all of this amazing knowledge.
Oh, right.
It's like
Yeah.
it's just this weird floating thing in space.
Right.
It's like how does it doesn't interact with anyone.
Yeah.
That
If it kills you,
Like,
what
it's
did
like-
you learn?
Yeah.
To die with honor. And also, like, all this knowledge was being held back by the shields. Is that what I gathered from that? So it can send all these signals through the ship and to people and communicate with Saru with UV light, but the shields were preventing it from imparting its knowledge to Discovery.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know.
I thought it was going to communicate with like a Velvet Elvis or Jimi Hendrix poster with the UV light, Here's the holy Jimi Hendrix Black Velvet poster that under UV light imparts all knowledge of the universe when you're stoned with mushroom spores. And you listen to Are You Experienced? No.
So overall, what did you take away from this episode, if anything?
Honestly, the only thing I can say is that I still have a little bit of hope that I've seen this before. I've seen shows just seem to just like instead of a blob, it was a space shark, and they just jumped Discovery right over it. But I've seen this before where I think it's just over. I'm like, that can't. Oh my god, this show is so horrible. But it ends up being 1 or 2 episodes. That especially these days, for some reason, shows seem to be able to pull back from the brink of just absolute utter stupidity. And because I was thinking about this the other night, I watched that movie Split by M. Night Shyamalan or whatever. Shyamalan. And I thought I enjoyed that movie, and it's a whole nother debate whether people like that movie or not. But
I haven't seen it yet.
It was well conceived, well written, well executed, I thought. And mostly well acted by everybody in the movie, especially the 2 leads, which was the psychiatrist lady and the guy with the problems. But anyway, I won't go into spoilers, but that whole thing hinged on whether the tone hit right and whether the performances hit right. If you looked at that script, you'd be like, this is impossible. Who would write that script? Because it does not translate to screen, and it takes way too many risks. Like, it's super wordy. And it depends totally on these actors doing something bizarre that you don't know if they're going to be able to pull off until you try to do it. And so I was, with this Discovery episode, I'm like, this kind of checks the boxes of trying to be classic Star Trek and get us interested in a life form. It reminds me of Next Generation when all the blue light creatures would always show up. They were always a blue light because that was the best cheap special effect they had or whatever. And we're supposed to care about them, and then that cast has to act like they're all wonderstruck that there's aliens out there that they can communicate, and it's misunderstood. It's just trying to be friendly. Like the episode where somebody on the crew Deanna Troy got pregnant and had the alien kid, and then the kid's like, okay, I gotta go now and be Space Jesus or whatever. It's like there's always been episodes like this,
Mhm.
so I hold out hope that this was just tonally like tone deaf and just a clash of different styles. There really wasn't any plot in this to hang your hat on that I thought was worth anything. I did like the one positive thing is I did like the androgynous engineering character.
No, I did too.
Jet.
Yeah, that was very much a plus. Jet Reno, I think is her name, the
Yeah,
one that they got off of the asteroid, basically.
right.
Yeah, I think she's a good character, and I did like the interplay between her and Stamets. I thought that was well done. That was one of the few bright spots of this episode, I thought.
About that Jet Reno character or whatever, I
Mhm.
kind of felt like they just threw all the best lines to her
Yeah.
this episode. Like whoever wrote that, there's probably a writer's room, and there's probably somebody that focused on let's get some snappy dialogue going between these characters and whatever. They did that part well. Unfortunately, the whole rest of the episode did not measure up at all, which is
No,
a
it didn't.
shame
Yeah.
because you get to focus on some of the other crewmen just like I've been asking for. Really,
Mhm.
only Saru, but um, but it just felt wrong. It's like tonally tone deaf, uh, a clash of different ideas and stuff that didn't make sense. It's just massive plot holes and problems. And and again, are we ever gonna get past this whole Tilly thing? The Tilly and Silly or whatever the fungi
Yeah.
character, Tilly and Silly, the
Mhm.
best buds, literally now. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, it's just dumb, and it's like Tilly last season I felt like worked because it was a dark as hell show most of the time. And so
Yeah.
you had a silly character in there to lighten it up, as much as I think that's not always the best of ideas and they end up being hated characters by a lot of people.
Mhm.
They just, it seems to be something. You have to do something to break the tension and put some humor. So if you could say she worked because of that last year. This year, the whole thing is tonally kind of like she sets the tone now for the whole crew. They're
Yeah.
almost saying like, this is the crew member you're supposed to kind of
Emulate.
associate with, emulate. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
supposed to empathize with, and it tells you a lot. Your protagonist tells you a lot about who your target audience is, and your B characters and all that. We're not in that target audience for Tilly. I don't believe. I know I'm not
No, I'm not.
at
I'm
all.
not. Yeah.
So I don't begrudge them. If there's Tilly fans out there, I don't begrudge them their character, and their point of view or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
But it feels way too purposeful. Like we're gonna
Mhm.
write this type of character for this type of people, and I feel shut out. I don't
Mhm.
feel any point of entry there. It's just getting stupid because it's a brighter show now, and the whole crew they all seem to reflect her silliness back. So the whole crew seems right now really silly to me. Like I just
Mhm.
can't get invested in their they just don't seem serious about any of this, and I
Right.
still don't know exactly what they're doing. There almost seems like they're on a personal mission to go
Mhm.
get Spock, who's a fugitive. What are they, bounty hunters now? I mean, what's the importance of this to the Federation? I know they just found all this knowledge, but it wasn't even one of the signal flares. So
No.
humanity just was granted all this knowledge by accident, basically,
Mhm.
just by
Mhm.
being out in space.
Yeah.
And also, what's the point of a 5-year mission when there's a blob library just sitting there that will give you everything you need
Yeah.
if you just stop by while it happens to be dying and it wants to pass? Why didn't it communicate before? I
Yeah,
mean,
I think there were a lot of presumptions in this episode by the writers that, they just, we're supposed to presume that this thing has all this amazing knowledge.
right.
How did it get it? How much knowledge can it really possess? What sort of interactivity did it have with other life forms that could possibly lend it to all this vast library of knowledge that's going to take, and I quote, thousands of years to study.
Right.
Thousands of
So,
years
so they
to
just put
study.
themselves off the hook. It's like by
Yeah,
the time we figure all this out, we'll all be dead,
we'll
and
all be dead.
it'll be Star Trek, 20,000 or whatever. So
Yeah,
we don't need to worry about explaining it or following up on it.
right. So yeah,
Uh,
I yeah,
and
I'm
what
not.
did you think about the view screens versus the holograms debate? They just threw that in there as an aside, like they brought the number one
Yeah,
character in almost just to make these kind of things like saying we're patching up the show. Look, we're patching up the show. We're trying to patch the inconsistencies. And it's like,
yeah.
why even bother doing that? It didn't work to me.
I didn't have a problem with the ghost comment. I mean, I know they're going to do that. They're gonna try and they're trying to explain why the technology is different in a few years on, and they're almost making it as though it's almost like a captain's choice or something. You know what I mean? Pike
Well, they
basically
also
saying, I just
implied
don't
it's a
like
glitch.
holograms because they remind me of ghosts. They look like ghosts as opposed to just like a regular person on a screen. I just, it's almost like in a way that's trying too hard. I think
Yes.
they're making too many references to connections and things like that. It's almost too much.
They
And
also
I
go
wish
ahead.
I could remember the comment. He made one right at the beginning, I believe, either to number one or right around when number one was in the show. And I can't remember what it is because I mean, honestly, this is the first episode I've only watched once before we've done this podcast,
Right.
because I just couldn't imagine going through it a second time.
Right.
I just didn't like it.
Your fear
Even
ganglia won't
and
allow
that's
you.
saying a lot if I actually watched the Leon episode twice.
Right.
And didn't watch this one twice. But I forget what it was. It was just some random throw to the previous the Star Trek original series stuff, and I just like, okay, I get why they did it, but they don't need to do it.
Right.
I didn't, and I don't remember what the actual comment was right now, but
It seems
yeah.
like
I-
retconning, trying to backpedal and fix some of their
Of course,
mistakes.
yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. I mean, I did think the episode started fairly brightly. I like the fact that that we finally got to see number one.
Yeah.
And I think she was portrayed fairly well. Obviously, we get a lot of Pike right off the bat, which again, now he's absolutely the best part of the show right now.
Without question, right?
As I'm watching through the episode too, that kept coming back to me. So every time I'm seeing him on the bridge, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm invested, and I'm interested. And then when he's not there, I'm just like, ugh. I don't care. And I find myself thinking, like, how can we make him the main character now?
Yeah,
as
please.
opposed to Michael Burnham,
Right, please.
or anybody else. Because here's the biggest thing when I completely disconnected is towards the end when this bears discussing. But the whole long quote unquote death scene that Saru is experiencing, and he's trying to get Michael to take the knife, and it's just like, I felt nothing.
Yeah, it was bad.
They were trying to make it emotional, and they're crying, and it's like, no, I can't do this. It's like, I literally am sitting there stone faced.
Right.
I'm like, I got nothing. I get like,
Yeah.
this means this is not impacting.
And we all know the real Michael Burnham would have just heated up some butter and just, without any discussion, would have cut those ganglia off and dipped them, with a little garlic and butter, and just had herself a little snack. It just didn't ring true. All of a sudden, you are family. How much family does she need? I mean, she's already got an estranged brother. You're not a great sister, Michael Burnham. I mean, nope. So why you killed your first captain? How many family you had? Lorca, who was your,
Well, now apparently
you are do not boyfriend, and Georgiou, who worshipped the ground you walked on. Now you got Pike, who says, "My undiminished faith and trust in you is not affected at all." But I was like, why do you trust her? I mean, I understand she's brilliant and everything, and she came up again with like 10 different things that solved issues this episode, even though she wasn't even heavily featured. She still solved everyone's problems.
Yeah.
But why would you trust her? Trust is a different matter than having faith in her skills.
Right.
And
exactly.
And Pike goes out of his way to go, oh, trust Burnham, I love you so much. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what we. It's like, oh, shut up. Really?
Yeah.
Just do your jobs in space. You're in freaking space. You're not. You're not in a place, a psychology clinic to discuss your feelings.
Yeah.
Space.
They
You
think
could die any second.
And and then Saru's telling her that she replaced his sister, that he had. I've yet to see any connection on the show that shows that they have become brother and sister now.
If anything, I would believe Tilly over that, or just some crewman X who just showed up and went, "Oh, I heard you're sick, Saru," and it's like, "Oh, they had a relationship off screen." I would believe that more than what,
what they just trying to push off with Michael. Yeah. Agreed.
And again, I do not want to criticize actors. I don't.
No. And that's not what I'm doing either.
Well, I'm about to.
It's okay. But for me, it boils down to writing and directing. And it just doesn't seem like they have an idea of what they really need to do right now. No.
Everybody's super hard on actors if they don't like what they do, but actors are put in front of a camera and told go.
Told what to do.
Yeah, they're told go, and they have to trust everything from the script to the editing. They have no control over any of that and how they're going to really end up looking. They have to
how the effects look.
Plus, they could do 10, 20, God knows how many takes and not even know which version the editors are going to go through or the director and choose which version of the character they want to build based on all those takes and stuff. So you can't blame the actors, but the performances weren't good. It really took me out of it. Like, I don't know how to, it was tone deaf. It was not right. Everything was overwrought. Even the Star Trek moments were so heavy-handed and overdone. Like when the crew all stood up, it's like, okay, unknown crewman number 3. Mm-hmm. I still don't know who any of them are. It's like there's the black crewman, there's the Korean crewman, there's the one with the disability. There's the, that's all I know them as. I don't even know their names or anything. And I've watched a whole season of this.
Yeah.
It's a huge flaw in the show. But like I said, the Star Trek moments, like when Burnham said, "Its last act was saving our lives." Yeah, it's just, it was so heavy-handed. It's like, the heaviest hand in the history of heavy hands, and I was just longing for the days of Spock going, "It's like nothing we've seen before." Yeah, they began every episode of Star Trek that way. He just found a different way to say it every time. Like, everything is nothing they've ever seen before. Which that's all shot to hell now, thanks to the blob of infinite knowledge. Spock's like, it's like nothing we've seen before, except from that blob archive.
Blob of infinite knowledge.
Here it is. Here, look, I brought it up there. We've seen it here. Look, we can move along. We know exactly what's going to happen. The blob saw it. The blob saw it 200,000 years ago. just screw this whole 5-year mission and series and everything. Go drop kick Genghis Khan, Captain Kirk, and have a campfire with Abe Lincoln and the heroes of the universe. Because we can't learn anything else. We know everything already, thanks to Blob in space.
Can't just let him stay there.
Perhaps we can rescue him, Mr. Spock.
Just let him stay.
Perhaps.
So let's move on to the ending scene with the way the whole Tilly storyline wrapped up.
That's right. There was another story.
Blob got out. It ends up attaching to her arm, and slowly but surely they put her in containment, and then it slowly but surely starts to take over her. And then they have the scene with Reno and Stamets having like LSD trips, basically.
Which was creepy.
It was creepy, but at the same time, I found it creepy. I don't know if I had already checked out of the episode by that point, so nothing they could do could save it for me. But I just like.
What was the cringe meter? We need a Star Trek Discovery cringe meter. I'm gonna create one. It's going to appear over here, somewhere right in here, somewhere in the cringe meter, or maybe over on you. But what was more cringy to you on the cringe meter? The ground control to Major Tom, the Space Odyssey, or that moment where they're singing to each other and he drills into her brain, which I felt her pain. I felt like the whole episode was drilling into my very soul. But was that cringier, or was the moment you were just talking about, the LSD trip and mushroom trip in space? Which was cringy.
I think the mushroom trip, honestly,
was cringier. Really?
I mean, the other was cringeworthy as
beating.
Yeah, the other was cringeworthy for me as well, but it didn't make me just go, come on, at the screen, literally, like the LSD trip did. And it was just like, why even bother? It's like they do it and they're immediately fixed. It's like, not that I wanted them to draw it out, but why? Yeah. There's like, okay, hold on, hit me, bang. Okay, I got the shot, bang, bang. Okay, now we're perfectly fine.
I hate to bring
to have that shot sitting around in case of LSD trip, break glass. I mean,
this is a curse word for me, but it reminded me of fan fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally a scene word to me, but a scene phrase to me, but it was very fan fiction-y moment. Like, I'm sorry, you got to earn that kind of silliness. Like, you got to make us love these characters before you
try and make them
yeah,
silly, and
yeah, if you make them silly, they
make
just
them
that's
jokey.
they're just dumb from that point on. That's a part of their character. You have to
Right.
establish first, and then you got to be a little more careful than that. But I mean, it was over quickly. At least we didn't get a
No,
whole
true,
episode of everyone tripping on
everyone
mushrooms.
tripping. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So speaking of that, what did you think of the at the beginning that when everybody was speaking a different language?
I was fine with that.
I did. I was too. I thought that
That
was
was kind of cool.
actually. I thought that was going to be more of a crux of the
I thought that was the whole
episode.
episode. Yeah, I thought it was going to be the
I
Tower of
really did
Babel
too, and
episode.
I actually thought that would have been unique and pretty interesting. It would seem like a really kind of almost like an original series type of trick to do. I can see them building like a TOS episode around that.
Many people might disagree. I don't know, but I'm glad they didn't try to tackle the whole universal translator stupidity, where like people's mouths move like you expect it to. Like when she's speaking Italian, her mouth is moving in Italian. Yeah, they just went with it. They didn't bother trying to explain it or anything because you can't explain it. It's impossible. And yeah, that's more fun, goofy Star Trek stuff that they should be doing that on the Orville, which is a parody of Star Trek. That they should be doing that kind of thing on the Orville, which is a whole different show. Maybe we need to cover since this one is rapidly. It's like Claire,
deteriorating.
Claire. But listen. Like I was saying, it could just be one episode. Some of my favorite shows, Person of Interest, Lost. Some of the Lost went on a tangent of like 3 in a row or something where I just almost gave up, and then it came back and was brilliant after that. And Person of Interest did the same thing. It had one of the worst episodes I've ever seen on television of anything, and then was just consistently amazing right after that. So you have to kind of go, this was filler. This was filler. I mean, no question about it. There was nothing established here. It's like they let the fan fiction writers just go crazy, and they said, and remember, you got to have a life form that's misunderstood, and you got to have another life form that's misunderstood, and it has to be, the fault of the people in space exploring that they did it carelessly. It has to be their fault, and then just do whatever the hell you want with the rest of it. Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I really don't have any much left to say about this episode.
No,
it was
go away.
it was easily the poorest of the season, and one of the absolute bottom 2 or 3 ever for the whole series.
Yeah, and like again, I'm not somebody that's going to sit there and say the cringe moments made it, the worst ever. It was the amalgamation of the whole thing and the fact that you're waiting for something to happen to get your interest. And I'm emotional. I'm an emotional watcher of these shows and stuff. Mm-hmm. I can analyze it and think about it later, and I can totally dismiss a plot hole if emotionally it connected with me, if I enjoyed it. I can almost totally dismiss it. I will grant you it's a weakness or whatever, but I can get over it. But at the end of this episode, unlike 2 weeks before, I really had no interest in what happened next. When they said next time on Discovery, I was like, there's another one. And and it's funny because I think we were both thinking the same thing. Like, this doing our podcast on every episode is turning rapidly into a bad idea at this point. When we don't have any, we don't want to sit here and just say negative things.
That's the thing. Yeah, I don't want to sit here and badmouth it, but I don't feel like I am badmouthing if I'm just giving my honest opinion because I didn't like it. I don't think they're doing a good job, so I'm not just going to sit here and sugarcoat it and pretend like I'm the official after show and be like, that was amazing. Yeah. That was the greatest episode ever, guys. How did you do it?
Oh, Saru was so close to death. I was just on the edge of my seat.
I literally fell off my chair at that point.
They almost had Spock. I really thought they were going to get him this time. What do you think he's doing in that shuttle?
These are quite possibly the best writers in television history, I think. Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely not doing that.
No. But yeah, I think going forward, maybe we'll just cover the highlight. Like if we ever get Spock.
That ever happens.
It seems pointless at this point. Let's hit it real quick. Any prediction changes for the future on this? I've kind of lost my grip of what the plot actually is at this point, the overarching plot. But
I'm going to make the easiest prediction out there. Okay. It's going to get better.
Yes. Okay.
Because
All right.
it's the only direction it can go, I think, right now.
Oh, my friend, you have no idea.
If it stays
It's
this
the worst.
bad, then you're absolutely right. They're going to have to bring out the paddles and
Yeah.
try and get this thing back to life, or else it's dead. And I don't want it to die, because that doesn't bode well for
No.
future Star Trek. I want more Star Trek content, and if this show, the flagship show, doesn't do well, it doesn't bode well for them creating more.
Yeah, and I like this show still.
Oh,
I
you
don't.
too.
I didn't like this episode, but it was just 2 episodes ago that I was fully on board and saying, "Wow, I'm excited again." So I'm going to give it a chance to say this was a bad filler, and and just eject it into space and be done with it. And we'll be analyzing the knowledge for 1,000 years or whatever. Even though we have a universal translator that tells us everything right there, it's like, okay. But anyway, the only thing on the preview that got me a little excited was the change of pace by showing the dark crew or whatever. The Section 31 crew is coming up.
Yeah.
I do have a bad feeling when we're talking about predictions that this plot is going to put Section 31 in conflict with Discovery. Why else do you have two ships? One on a secret stealth mission and one on a mission. I mean, the secret stealth one is going to conflict. It's the CIA versus the FBI or something.
Right.
And
yeah, no, I get what you mean.
I really think this is reinforcing the idea that the bad guy is Starfleet or Earth related. Whoever ultimately the bad person is that's trying to grab this Red Angel technology or whatever is somebody just looking to use it for a weapon, and they're going to be giving the orders to the Section 31 crew, I believe, which will put more drama. It'll put the Klingon and Burnham back at odds again, where they don't want to be. Where they'll have to choose loyalties and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I want to say is I've avoided talking about this. We've talked about it a little, but the Burnham-centric viewpoint of this show, not the fact that we're seeing events from her point of view, the fact that everyone seems to run to her. Everyone seems to run to her. Every story and every plot seems to run through her. I've avoided talking about this because I don't want to be seen as a hater. I don't want to be seen as someone who doesn't appreciate a female lead. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has nothing to do with anything except the fact that it's clumsy, obvious, and manipulative, and takes you right out of what you're trying to watch, to me.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're checking boxes, like, have we got our, positive affirmations of Burnham and Tilly this week? No, we'll have Pike say something about how great she is to her. Has Burnham solved 5 problems this week? No, it's only 3.5. Quick, get her the other 1.5 problems solved.
Yeah.
She was literally solving things that Saru should have known from his own culture and stuff. And then at the end, after she's going through this whole emotional thing, she brings the solution to where Spock went to Pike. And says, "Oh, while you guys were saving the ship, and I was saving the ship, and I was saving Saru, and I also figured out where Spock is." It's like, why did they have to do that? It becomes even the original Star Trek characters. That happened a whole lot, especially with Captain Kirk. But somehow they pulled it off. Everybody had a role, and everybody had their specialties and things that stayed consistent. Burnham just seems like an army of one. It's like, and everybody comes to her for everything. And I was hoping this season would be different and would be better on that front. But it's a Achilles heel of the writing. I feel like I cannot relate. I cannot relate to a character like that. Many times protagonists are overwritten. They're too heroic. They're too perfect, and we have to look to the side characters and the plots and the situations to draw us in, or the charisma, or something. Even in novels and things like that, the protagonists a lot of times are the ones that suffer the most, and it's a shame. It's just a shame. Because I want to really embrace this character and everything, but it's hard when they spoon feed it to you constantly. We don't need it spoon fed, But that's the mentality the show is going down. Is very, very obvious, very silly. very much telling you everything you're supposed to feel and believe and all that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's beyond Discovery. I feel like that's a current trend in media. You know,
Yes.
in these shows that we watch, they tend to drop the ball a lot of times. In that, if they had just left it there and with the insinuation of something, it would be so much more effective than leaving it there for half a beat and then be like, that means this, 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 and this. It's like,
Right.
okay, you just spoon fed us. You know, you don't
Yeah.
need to do that. You know, I guess they obviously think the audience is completely idiotic.
No
and just a bunch of
imagination
morons.
whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. That we can't figure it out for ourselves. But yeah, I don't get why that trend is going on right now.
It's why pop music and music is popular. People hear different things.
Yeah.
Half the time we don't even know what the lyrics are. Everybody has a different idea of the lyrics of a song and what it makes them feel and how they relate to it and stuff. We have to have areas of ambiguity. We have to have things that we can write in ourselves, and things that aren't shown to us. And it's getting tough because of the just heavy-handed nature of the show. So anyway, going forward, I've been saying explore the crew, but I just hope they pull back some and let the show breathe more. And also, how many plots were going on in this episode? And it was a filler episode. Almost none of them mattered, and it was just scattered everywhere. It kind of felt like the first episode to me of this season, where we have all these things going on, and it's at a pretty frenetic pace. Nobody's sitting still for very long, but I'm not connected to any of it, and none of it advanced any particular plots. And it was all kind of just that tone that I don't really like. It's like, if they're going for a classic Star Trek tone, they need to just have the humor be a part of it, not just a constant, there needs to be some element of, you can actually get in trouble on this ship. There is some discipline, there is some mission.
There's got to be something. Yeah.
This is just dumb at this point. You can do anything and everybody's totally understanding. There's no, it's just, they're in space in a vacuum. Their lives are on the line and people just act dumb. It's unbelievable,
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they aren't going to get into the same problem they got into in season 1 when they had some serious pacing issues. I hope they don't just basically front load the season with a bunch of filler episodes like we're getting, and then suddenly they're like, oh wait, we got to get to the Spock story, and let's cram an entire season's worth of Spock into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And it just flies back and it's just done. That was the problem they had last year with the pacing was just terrible in spots. Not the whole season, but there were spots when it was like stuff that would have been well served over 4 episodes or over 4 episodes gets crammed into 1 or 2. And it's like, just okay, resolve it immediately. Magical resolution every time. I hope they're not spiraling that way again. I hope they learn their lesson.
Yeah, I don't know. And it seems like a lot of times that stuff comes from chaos in the direction of the show and the writer's room. And it's like suddenly somebody takes over and says, we're going this direction now. And everything gets flipped on its head and goes into overdrive to try to reestablish a direction and a feel and all this stuff. And the best shows kind of know where to go from the beginning, or at least by this point, the second season, you should be hitting your stride. And one more thing. Have you watched any of the extras on CBS All Access, the short films?
I have not. No.
I watched them the other day. There was one about mud, which was pretty good, I thought. There was one about a guy stranded in space, and he boards
Are you talking about
Discovery.
The short treks?
Yeah, short treks.
Oh, yeah, I watched those as they came out. I thought you were talking about behind the scenes stuff.
No, the short treks. That's
I watched all 4 of I watched all 4 of the short treks as they were released. Yeah.
What did you think of those? Just real quick. I mean,
I enjoyed them. I thought they were pretty good. I thought the first one with Tilly was okay, nothing great. The one with the guy stranded on Discovery, I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it was one of the better ones, I thought.
Yeah, it was really well done. I like the Mud one just because I love that character, and I like his portrayal of that character. And what was
the scene? Spoiler, but the scene at the end where all the androids are together was was a throwback to how the androids acted in that original Star Trek episode. Yeah,
exactly.
That was pretty cool.
I think it was. Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed them. I thought they were really well done.
My point on that was to say that, in my opinion, the weakest of those was the Tilly one. And it was because it was so heavy-handed. And again, I get it. They were shorts, and they were, but the whole, our planet was destroyed by people looking for profit, and our environment suffered, and now blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And the inheritor is a female because all the males have died or whatever, your brother died or father died. It was just so I, I don't know. It's just not for me. I really I know some of the people associate Star Trek with big messaging and messages, and it did do that a lot, but that's not my favorite Star Trek. My favorite Star Trek is, I don't know, the stuff that blends all that together. And it's just that whoever directed that and wrote that short with Tilly, that's the problem I have with the show.
Yeah.
It's so manipulative, so obvious. It feels like they're trying too hard to message it for today instead of giving us a good story first.
Yeah.
I'm really sick of that. I wish media in general and all these movies and everything would start with a script, take all your agendas out of it, unless you're just writing a editorial, then do that. But or you're doing Orwell or something, or Soylent Green or something. That's the whole point of it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a franchise and you're doing an adventure film or you're doing whatever, give us a good story and characters we can get into first, and then the messaging and stuff can find its way in naturally. It's like it feels so unnatural. Like we're throwing all this money and doing all this just to put forward these messages in the foreground. It's I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not that subtle a guy, and when it feels totally unsubtle to me, and I can catch it, then you've gone too far. You just back off a little.
Exactly.
And just give us something fun to watch again. But
all right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. For this
yeah,
week.
it's way too long
There's
a
really not
discussion
much
of
else
this.
to talk about. So we're gonna kind of reassess and figure out what we're gonna do moving forward. Maybe hit the
back
high
if there's a
points
good
and-
episode. If we get
if there's a-
excited again, yeah.
Yeah. We'll do that, and hopefully we'll be back sooner rather than later. On that note.
Yeah, and last prediction: does
Yep.
anybody think, or last forecast? Does anybody think this spore creature is going to be the Red Angel at this point? Tilly with the red hair, the Red Angel.
God, I hope not.
Well, I said I think from the beginning, the Red Angel travels through time and space, which is what the spore drive does, and
Yeah.
it might have something to do with the spores. But I can't believe they would give that story to Tilly and not Burnham. But maybe Burnham will bring her back, make her human again. She's the only one that can do it because of their strong relationship. No one has any other relationships except with Burnham.
And on that note, so there you go.
I'm gonna go saw my ganglion now.
I'm just gonna dance to the outro music.
I swear, I didn't do it. Your ganglia just fell off on their own. I didn't touch them. I did not touch his ganglia.
I did not touch that woman's ganglia.
Wait, check your fear and empathy levels.
0.
Yeah. All right, later. We're putting into this.
Just stop recording there.
Hey you, why you looking so blue? I'm on my way at the end of the day.